Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin.
The rain does not simply fall in the Amazon. It whispers. It taps, it hums, it brushes against green skins like 1,000 quiet fingers tracing old memories. The leaves, each shaped like a thought long held, respond in ways too soft for the ear but too vital for the forest to forget. Before a single drop touches the ground, the canopy knows. Moisture clings to the air, and the leaves begin to curl inward or stretch wider, welcoming or warding. Some researchers have stood in awe, not because the rain was loud, but because the forest itself began to breathe differently. It was as if the leaves were listening. High above, where sunlight meets the uppermost greens, the leaves shimmer and flick with subtle movements. They're coated in tiny structures, microscopic hairs, waxy films, and pores called stomata that allow them to detect changes in humidity, pressure, and temperature. Long before the storm breaks open, these natural sensors come alive. Some trees close their stomata to save water. Others prepare to drink deeply. It's not just about thirst. It's about knowing. In the Amazon, to listen is to survive. The forest speaks in patterns that most of us overlook. Rain falls in rhythms, not chaos, and the leaves, like well-trained dancers, have learned to move with these rhythms over millions of years. In the laboratory of Earth's deepest green, every drop has a role. Some leaves angle themselves to funnel water down their stems, feeding thirsty roots. Others repel the droplets, shedding excess to avoid rot or disease. Some plants, like the epiphytes clinging to high branches, collect rain in their leafy cups, offering home to frogs, insects, and tiny ecosystems. The leaves are not passive. They are active listeners, interpreters, and sometimes even composers of the forest's rain song. Far below, on the shadowy floor, the echoes of raindrops are softened by thick mats of moss and fallen leaves. But up in the layers of the canopy, the rain is a percussion symphony. Each species of leaf makes a different sound. Some are wide and soft, muffling the patter like a pillow. Others are waxy and hard, causing each drop to ping like a plucked string. The combination creates an atmosphere of gentle noise, of life in motion. Even the animals take notice. Monkeys huddle closer together. Birds seek refuge in thicker branches, and insects burrow deeper into their shelters. All are attuned to the signals that come with the rain. It's a cue, a clock, a message written in water. For the plants, these signals are part of an ancient language. When the rains come, roots expand. Chemical messengers travel from leaf tip to root cap. Sugars shift. Nutrients move. Growth begins. Scientists have observed how, in anticipation of the wet season, certain trees begin preparing weeks in advance, triggered by the changing frequency of rainfall. They allocate energy toward leaf production or flowering, sometimes even shedding leaves if they sense too much moisture will arrive. The forest adjusts, listens, responds. And this listening is not limited to single trees. Recent research has revealed that forests like the Amazon are connected underground by vast mycorrhizal networks, delicate fungal threads that link roots from one plant to another. Through these networks, trees can send signals, warnings, or even nutrients. It's been called the wood wide web, and during the rains, it too is alive with conversation. A tree that senses flooding might share chemical cues with its neighbors. A sapling that drinks deeply may trigger others nearby to conserve. The rain activates more than just leaves. It stirs the whole community of the forest into gentle dialogue. Even the timing of the rain carries weight. Early morning mist signals a slow, cool awakening. Afternoon downpours bring bursts of energy and change. Night rains lull the forest into sleep. The leaves have learned to read these moments. They open or close accordingly, regulating moisture and gas exchange, balancing photosynthesis and rest. It's as though each leaf wears a tiny clock, tuned not just to sunlight but to water's rhythms. And in the Amazon, where the seasons blur and time is written in rainfall. These clocks are masters of precision. Now imagine a single broad leaf high above stretching toward a gray sky. The air grows dense. The wind holds its breath. Then the first drop lands, a soft thud. The leaf quivers. It has been waiting. It has listened. And now it responds not with words but with action. Its pores open or close. Its surface shifts angle. Deep inside, vascular bundles carry the signal downward. This is not passive behavior. It is intelligence measured in motion and silence. Some scientists refer to this as plant behavior. Others are cautious, choosing words like response or adaptation. But for those who walk quietly in the Amazon, the sense is more profound. These leaves do not just react to rain, they anticipate it, they read it, they feel it. And in doing so, they teach us that listening can take many forms. Not all ears are shaped like ours. Not all listeners speak back with sound. The next time you hear rain, imagine that somewhere deep in the Amazon, thousands of miles of green skin are tuning in, preparing, responding. Picture a forest alive with sensation, not just of growth, but of awareness, where each drop is a note and each leaf a patient, listening soul. Here, the rain is not background noise. It is a story being told. And the leaves, quiet and unmoving to our eyes, are among the best listeners the earth has ever known. Deep beneath the layered hush of dripping leaves, the forest breathes in cycles of memory. The rain is not only a present moment, it is history returning, a pulse repeating, and the leaves remember. Science calls this memory a physiological imprint, where past conditions influence how a plant behaves in the future. But in the language of the forest, it is something more poetic. It is as if the trees dream with their skin. If the rains came too heavy the year before, a tree might prepare differently the next time, opening fewer stomata, stretching fewer buds. This is not guesswork. It is learned experience embedded in every fiber of green. The Amazon is a library made of bark and leaf and wind. Its records are not kept in ink but in chemistry. When rain begins to fall, the leaves activate enzymes and proteins that shape their responses. They produce hormones like abscisic acid to close their pores, or cytokinin to encourage cell division and growth. These decisions are not conscious, but they are wise. The forest knows when to drink and when to wait. It remembers the last flood, the last drought. It adjusts its story accordingly. Among the most fascinating examples are the leaves that change shape with the seasons. Some species of trees in the Amazon can actually alter the angle or thickness of their leaves in response to shifting rainfall patterns. This isn't just a response to light or heat. It's a precise adaptation to the texture and timing of water itself. A tree that has survived multiple wet seasons becomes more skilled at managing its canopy. It will shed excess leaves ahead of floods or widen them during dry spells. Each change is quiet, slow, and deliberate, and each one begins with listening. But the forest doesn't keep this knowledge locked in isolation. Through chemical signals in the air, tiny volatile compounds released into the breeze, plants send warnings or invitations to their neighbors. One tree under heavy rain stress might release ethylene, which prompts nearby plants to brace themselves. Another might emit jasminates, which can deter leaf-eating insects brought forth by humid conditions. It is a system of whispers, chemical and constant, echoing across miles of green. Rain is not just falling. It's being interpreted and translated, leaf by leaf, molecule by molecule. This communication is part of a wider rhythm, a forest-wide choreography shaped by rain and time. Rainfall influences flowering cycles, fruit production, and even seed dispersal. Some trees only bloom after the heaviest rains have soaked the ground for weeks. Others wait for the brief dry spells between storms to release seeds that can travel on wind or float on shallow pools. Everything is timed with the precision of memory. The forest is not guessing, it is remembering. The animals have learned to read this timing too. Certain frogs only sing during a specific sequence of rainy nights. Some birds adjust their nesting schedules depending on leaf growth triggered by early rains. Even the leafcutter ants adjust their harvests, choosing softer or tougher leaves depending on how much moisture has passed through the forest. They are not just reacting. They are syncing. It is a grand conversation where the rain is the message and the entire ecosystem is the chorus. Science tells us that this synchrony is vital for resilience. In a place where rainfall defines life itself, the ability to anticipate and adapt can mean survival. But the beauty of this system is not just in its efficiency, it is in its grace. There is a tenderness in how the forest responds, never rushing, never resisting, only adjusting with quiet care. Trees that share water through their roots, leaves that change position like hands offering or shielding. Plants that bloom only when the rains tell them the time is right. It is a community governed not by dominance but by listening. Some of the newest research into Amazonian leaf dynamics reveals that even individual leaves on the same tree can behave differently based on their exposure to rain. A shaded leaf may remain still, while one exposed to open sky begins to pivot or curl. This suggests not only environmental sensitivity, but a kind of local intelligence, each leaf interpreting its own message, yet still part of the larger organism. It is like a symphony where every instrument listens before it plays. And then there are the secrets stored in scent. During and after rainfall, the Amazon smells different, not just to humans but to the forest itself. Leaves release oils, alkaloids, and terpenes that fill the air with invisible signals. Some attract pollinators, others ward off predators. Still others change the way water interacts with the leaf surface, affecting how fast it dries or absorbs. Each droplet becomes a messenger, triggering the release of chemicals that shape how the plant behaves. And in this way, rain writes stories not just on the skin of the forest, but in its very breath. Let's drift deeper now, beneath the upper canopy where vines twist like serpents and bromeliads cup the sky. Here, the leaves must compete more fiercely for light and water, and yet they too are listeners. When rain begins to fall above, the signals cascade downward. Some leaves unfurl to catch the drips that slip through branches. Others wait until the sound of water on wood tells them it's their turn. They don't rush. They remember the pattern. It's a kind of harmony shaped by time. And in the heart of this rain-touched world, the leaves do something even more extraordinary. They share. When one leaf drinks too deeply, the tree redistributes moisture through its vascular system, feeding other parts that need it more. This internal economy of care is ancient and elegant. Even trees of different species, through root grafts and fungal bridges, can support one another during prolonged storms or dry spells. The rain doesn't divide, it connects. And the forest, in turn, becomes more than a collection of individuals. It becomes a memory in motion. As twilight falls and the last light bleeds into a soft gray, the rain slows. The leaves release their grip, drop their gathered water in soft plinks and shushes. The forest settles, its song winding down, but the memory remains. Inside each cell, inside each pore, the story of the rain is etched. It is not forgotten. It will shape how tomorrow unfolds, how wide a leaf will grow, how deep a root will reach, how patiently a bud will wait. In the Amazon, the rain is never just water. It is instruction, history, communion. And somewhere in the hush between droplets, a single leaf remembers not just this storm, but all that came before. Its edges curl in thoughtful silence. Its surface gleams with the last shimmer of daylight. And though it cannot speak, it tells the forest everything it needs to know. When the rain has passed and the sky lightens with the soft promise of a returning sun, the leaves begin their quiet aftermath. The air is thick with the scent of renewal. Droplets cling to every surface like pearls left behind by the storm. But the forest does not rush to dry. It breathes slowly. It holds the water a while longer. The leaves, now soaked and glistening, enter a stage of reflection, processing the rain, adjusting their inner rhythms, preparing for what comes next. The listening is not over. It only changes shape. As light filters down through the canopy, it lands on leaves that are already responding, already shifting. Some open wide to catch the warmth and resume the sacred act of photosynthesis, their green cells turning light into food and energy. Others remain slightly closed, cautious after the storm. The rain has passed, but the lessons it carried are not forgotten. In the stillness that follows, there is decision-making, subtle and slow. Should the leaf repair the tissue bruised by heavy drops? Should the tree divert sugars to growing new buds? Should it begin preparing for another rain, already whispering on the horizon? It is here in this recovery that the rainforest reveals one of its most beautiful truths. Growth does not come in haste. It comes in rest, in silence, in the softness that follows movement. The leaves know this. They stretch not with urgency but with patience. They allow the sun to warm their damp surfaces. They drink the moisture clinging to their edges. Inside, their cells shift gently, sending nutrients down to roots, up to fruits, out to stems. This is not reaction. This is response, a conversation that continues long after the rain has ended. On some leaves, small pools have formed in gentle curls and folds. In them, tiny lives stir, mosquito larvae, floating pollen, gliding insects with wings like stained glass. These microworlds are part of the rainforest's memory too. The rain doesn't just feed plants, it creates habitat, it sculpts life. A single leaf can become a cradle, a mirror, a shelter. Even after the droplets vanish, the shape of the leaf is changed by the weight of the water it once held. This subtle bending, this shaping over time, is the story of the forest. Birds begin to return to their favorite perches, shaking wet feathers. Sloths blink slowly, emerging from their leafy blankets. Butterflies taste the air with delicate feet, searching for salts left behind by the storm. The entire ecosystem begins to stretch awake again, not with clamor but with careful grace. And the leaves are part of this unfolding. Their movements are nearly imperceptible to human eyes, but they are there, orienting toward light, adjusting to wind, realigning with the slow clock of the day. They are writing the next chapter of the story the rain began. In the silence after rain, the Amazon becomes a sanctuary of balance. Every leaf that withstood the storm, every tree that adjusted its canopy, every fern that cradled water is part of a grand equation, how to thrive in a world of constant change. And thrive they do, not with resistance but with flow. They do not defy the rain, they dance with it, they let it pass through them. They hold it and then let it go. This is not just survival, it is grace. The rainforest offers us a model of resilience that is deeply poetic. It teaches that listening is not about control but about trust. The leaves do not try to stop the storm. They do not wish the rain away. They accept it. They prepare for it. They grow because of it. And in the quiet moments after, they pause, not to rush ahead but to breathe, to absorb, to align. This gentle rhythm, this trust in time and cycles, is what allows the forest to remain strong century after century. In the spaces between branches, sunlight breaks into gold dust, illuminating the soft shimmer of water still hanging from moss and lichen. The forest hums with low sounds, a frog's call, a distant bird, the sigh of a breeze through wet leaves. It is music made of memory, and the leaves, still listening, absorb it all. They are shaped not only by sunlight and rain but by silence, by the spaces where nothing is said but everything is known. The human eye sees only green. The human ear hears only drops and rustles. But inside each leaf is a record of the day, a diary of rain, pressure, light, and shadow. In these pages written in cells and sap, the story of the rainforest continues. It is a story told not with words but with water, not with sound but with shape, not with urgency but with patience. And so, as evening falls again and the canopy glows with the soft blush of dusk, the leaves settle. They have done their listening. They have weathered the storm. They have responded with quiet wisdom. There is no applause, no recognition, no need for grand gestures, just a stillness full of knowing, just a forest ready to dream once more. Above, the sky gathers clouds for tomorrow. Below, the leaves wait not with fear but with faith. They will listen again. They will remember. And when the rain returns, they will not resist. They will welcome it like an old friend. For in the Amazon, every leaf is a listener. Every drop is a teacher. And every storm is a soft reminder that life, at its most beautiful, begins in quiet attention. In the heart of the Amazon, where thunder rolls like the voice of a sleeping god and the sky splits open in flashes of pale fire, something quiet stirs beneath the noise. The trees do not panic when storms arrive. They do not bend in fear. Instead, they whisper to one another in signals too soft for human ears. Beneath the booming heavens and trembling canopy, there is a calm conversation unfolding, an exchange of electric pulses, scents, and subtle changes in posture. The rainforest becomes a cathedral of dialogue, alive with the voices of trees speaking through the storm. Long before lightning cracks the sky, the trees know. They sense the tension in the air, the rising humidity, the shift in pressure, the faint electric fields that press against every leaf and branch. Trees are not deaf to the world around them. They are tuned in. Their roots and leaves, their bark and buds are laced with sensors. These biological instruments detect changes in the environment faster than we imagine. When a storm brews, trees prepare. Some close their stomata to conserve water. Others strengthen their cell walls in anticipation of wind. But more remarkably, they begin to talk. This language of trees is not like ours. It is carried not by sound but by scent, by chemistry, by electrical flickers deep within their tissues. When danger approaches, be it heavy rain, falling limbs, or the threat of damage, trees release volatile organic compounds into the air. These invisible puffs drift to neighboring plants, alerting them to brace, to guard, to prepare. A tree injured by wind might send out distress chemicals that cause others nearby to thicken their bark or reduce their exposed surface. The communication is local, swift, and vital. It's not panic, it's protocol. But there is another, even more mysterious form of conversation: bioelectricity. Within the tree, signals move like pulses of light. Through the phloem and xylem, the vascular highways of a plant, electrical signals travel in response to physical stress. When thunder rumbles and rain pounds, these signals ripple outward from branch to root to neighbor, a kind of botanical Morse code. Scientists have studied these electrical potentials and found that trees respond to sound vibrations too, especially low-frequency rumbles like thunder. It's as though the forest itself listens to the storm's voice and then speaks back in tremors. Some researchers believe that trees can even recognize the approach of lightning. The sky becomes charged. Electrons dance across leaf surfaces. Certain species alter their moisture content to reduce damage, acting as if they can feel the electricity in the air. The rainforest doesn't just endure storms, it participates in them. It shifts its chemistry. It tunes its defenses. It activates its networks. And all this begins before a single raindrop falls. Imagine standing in a clearing as a storm approaches. The wind grows heavy with promise. The animals retreat into the shadows, but the trees, they stay, still, tall, waiting. Inside their trunks, calcium ions are moving, triggering cascades of response. The leaves quiver not from fear but from anticipation. Tiny pores begin to close, starches are diverted, proteins are activated. And all the while, signals pass from one tree to another, a chain of electrical murmurs riding along root systems and fungal threads. These underground filaments, mycorrhizal networks, link trees across vast distances. And during a storm, they light up with information. This network is often called the Wood Wide Web. It is one of the most remarkable discoveries in modern botany. Through it, trees share nutrients, warnings, and even forms of memory. A tree that has survived many storms becomes a teacher, sending biochemical lessons to younger trees nearby. And when thunderstorms strike, this web comes alive. It hums with tension and communication. The fungal partners, themselves ancient listeners, respond too, changing how they interact with root systems. What looks like stillness above is a flurry of dialogue below. And the rain begins. Drops fall in thick, heavy beads, striking leaves and bark and soil. Some trees shudder, others stay rigid. Some begin to release compounds that deter insects whose activity increases during wet conditions. Others focus on healing, sealing off torn fibers, pushing out excess water. Every action is calculated, even if it looks slow to us. Trees don't scream, they don't flinch, but they do act. And behind every movement is a message: I feel this, I am aware, I am responding. There are stories of forests where entire groves lean in the same direction after a storm, reshaping themselves over time to minimize future damage. This is more than chance. It is adaptation guided by memory. Trees grow differently depending on how often they experience storms. Some even change the thickness of their bark or the density of their leaves in response to long-term patterns of lightning and wind. These decisions are encoded in their genes, shaped by past conversations with thunder. The animals of the forest know how to listen to these tree signals too. Some birds avoid nesting in trees that emit certain chemicals during storms, sensing weakness or instability. Insects choose new feeding grounds based on the defensive odors of plants. Even mammals, like monkeys and sloths, shift their routes based on the posture and scent of storm-affected branches. The language of trees is not a private code. It is a shared dialect, understood by the entire ecosystem. So the next time you think of a storm as chaos, remember this. In the Amazon, storms are part of a larger harmony. Thunder is not just noise, it is a call. And the trees, tall and unmoving to our eyes, are not passive recipients. They are listeners, responders, and teachers. They brace, they speak, they guide. And when the rain ends and the thunder rolls away into silence, the forest does not forget. The signals continue to move underground. The lessons remain encoded in chemical trails and electrical echoes. The young saplings take these messages and grow a little differently, a little stronger. The old giants add another chapter to their long, living memory. And somewhere, beneath the moss and soil, the fungal threads carry whispers of the storm far into the roots of trees yet unseen. In this way, the rainforest does more than survive thunderstorms. It grows wiser because of them. Its voices do not need thunder to be heard. They speak in silence, in scent, in spark. And when the next storm comes, they will be ready, not because they braced for war, but because they listened. As the thunder fades and the rainfall shifts from torrents to a gentle hush, the forest does not return to stillness. It enters a new phase of communication. The leaves glisten with droplets, and the air, thick with petrichor, holds the scent of rain and life. Beneath this calm, the trees continue their silent conversation. The messages that began with warning signals now evolve into restoration, guidance, and remembrance. Thunderstorms do not simply pass through the forest. They etch themselves into its living fabric, shaping growth and behavior for days, seasons, and lifetimes. What's remarkable is that trees do not only respond to damage, but also interpret the type of storm that passed. Was the thunder long and rolling, or short and sharp? Was the rain warm or cold? Was the wind sweeping or sudden? These sensations are interpreted by the tree's many receptors, tiny pressure sensors in cells, electrical gradients across membranes, and complex hormone networks within their tissues. Like musicians reading the tempo of a symphony, trees adjust their internal rhythms to match the song of the storm. Deep in the trunks, electrical signaling continues. These pulses, called action potentials, travel through the phloem like tiny lightning strikes. Similar to the neurons in our bodies, though slower and simpler, these signals tell the tree what parts were stressed, what needs to heal, and which branches may need reinforcement. Some trees respond by thickening supportive tissues. Others allocate more nutrients to damaged limbs. These aren't reflexes. They are organized decisions made by cells working in harmony. And the forest remembers together. In the tangled root systems, older trees begin sending sugars and nutrients to younger ones. Fungal threads carry not just water and carbon, but signals, chemical messages that help saplings prepare for similar storms in the future. In some studies, trees that experienced artificial wind stress sent these stress cues to neighboring trees through underground networks. The receivers began altering their gene expression, bracing as if they too had felt the wind. This communal awareness reveals a rainforest not as a collection of isolated plants, but as a vast, coordinated organism. In this shared intelligence, every tree is both a speaker and a listener. A lightning strike may kill a single tree, but its message echoes through the forest. Nearby trunks begin to shift water away from delicate tissues. Others reduce their electrical potential, making themselves less attractive to the next bolt. The scent of scorched bark becomes a signal too, a chemical flare warning others to prepare. Even death in the forest becomes part of the language. Above the forest floor, epiphytes, plants that grow on trees, respond in their own ways. Bromeliads collect stormwater in their cup-shaped leaves, storing it not just for themselves but for frogs, insects, and tiny fish that live in the sky. These leaves are sensitive too. They tilt and adjust during storms, managing the overflow to prevent drowning their small residents. Some can even absorb minerals washed down by the rain, using the storm to nourish themselves and their guests. In this way, each branch becomes a miniature world, a society shaped by rain and guided by the cues sent down through thunder. And the animals, ever attuned, follow these messages. Some monkeys avoid certain tree paths that become unstable after lightning. Parrots choose new roosting spots based on changes in branch scent and moisture. Even butterflies, delicate and weightless, use the residue of storm-washed leaves to gather salts vital for their survival. Every creature reads the forest's post-storm whispers. Every being plays a part in interpreting the thunder's lesson. What makes this more wondrous is that trees do not hold grudges against the storm. They do not resist nature's voice. They adapt to it, dance with it. Where a branch has broken, a new bud will form. Where lightning has scarred the bark, the tree will grow around it, weaving the memory into its grain. These scars become maps of experience, etched into the trunk like quiet poetry. Walk through the Amazon and you'll find trees marked by 1,000 storms, each one holding within it the story of a season, a wind, a bolt of fire from the sky. Some scientists now explore the idea that storms can act as ecological resets. After a major thunderstorm, the forest shifts. Light breaks through new gaps in the canopy. Seeds that have waited years for the right moment finally sprout. Trees that fall become homes for fungi, nests for birds, and food for the soil. In this way, the storm is not just a disruptor, it is a rewriter. And the trees, with their senses alert and their memory intact, know how to follow the new script. Let's imagine a great ceiba tree towering above its neighbors, a sentinel of the jungle. The storm has passed and it stands dripping, steam rising from its soaked bark. It does not speak with voice but with action. Its leaves shift to catch the sunlight now piercing the clouds. Its roots pulse with renewed activity. And through the fungal threads connecting it to its kin, it sends out calm signals. The danger has passed. The light has returned. Grow, reach, begin again. And across the forest, a quiet transformation unfolds. Saplings that had curled inward now stretch toward the sky. Ferns unfurl. Vines begin their slow climb once more. The Amazon breathes out. The rain has fed it. The thunder has taught it. The silence after the storm is not empty. It is full of decision, of rebuilding, of whispered instructions moving from leaf to root to soil. Every element in this rainforest, from the tiniest spore to the tallest trunk, is part of a web of remembrance and response. The storm was a messenger, and now its message is being carried onward, not in haste but in harmony. The trees are not stunned. They are alive with purpose. Their posture shifts. Their chemistry changes. Their memory grows deeper. And all of it happens without a word, without a sound, in the language of nature that we are only beginning to understand. So if you ever find yourself beneath a canopy just after a thunderstorm, stand still. Close your eyes. Feel the air, the earth, the soft dripping of leaves. Somewhere beneath your feet, a tree is sending a signal. Somewhere above, a leaf is listening. The storm has passed, but the forest has not forgotten. As the hours drift on and the forest dries gently in the warm breath of the returning sun, something deeper begins to unfold. Something beyond repair and recovery. The trees, having spoken to one another in the storm's presence, now reflect in its absence. The silence after thunder is not emptiness. It is the echo of all that was shared, a moment of contemplation held across 1,000 green hearts. And in this silence, the rainforest becomes a place of reorganization, of planning, of growth shaped by memory. The trees do not merely endure. They respond with thoughtfulness, as if each thunderstorm leaves behind a secret only the leaves understand. This secret is stored not in a single cell but in patterns of behavior. Trees that have known many storms shape their future accordingly. They alter their branching patterns, reinforce their trunks, or deepen their roots. Young trees, linked by roots to their elders, receive not just nutrients but knowledge, chemical markers that influence their resilience. Some studies suggest that trees exposed to the same signals develop synchronized behaviors, such as flowering at the same time after seasonal rains or resisting pests in collective waves. The thunderstorm, then, is not just a moment, it becomes a code that is written into the body of the forest. The deeper layers of soil, where light cannot reach and the noise of the storm is only a faint tremble, become rich with invisible activity. Mycorrhizal fungi pulse with shared resources and information. The fungal strands wrap around roots like lace, bridging not only trees of the same species but sometimes different ones, species that may seem to compete above ground but collaborate quietly below. The storm has activated these networks, pushing sugars, water, and signals through them like a great current. Trees that lost limbs receive help. Trees that remained steady offer more. This is not charity. It is survival through cooperation. And while the upper canopy dries in sunlight, below, in the mid-layers and understory, the world remains dappled and damp. Here, broad leaves shed rain in thick drops that fall like a second, gentler storm. The vines slowly creep forward, their tips moist and glowing with new growth. Orchids blossom, fed by the sudden change in air and chemistry. Mosses expand across bark. Frogs sing softly in the puddles left behind. The thunder is gone, but the forest is very much awake, moving slowly, adjusting quietly, preparing for the next change. Somewhere in this layered dance of life, the memory of the storm is settling into place. The bark begins to harden where it was bruised. The leaves that were torn are let go, drifting down in a spiral to feed the soil. New shoots emerge not from defiance but from understanding. Every break is a possibility, every scar a design. In the Amazon, life does not return to what it was. It becomes something new each time, shaped by wind, water, and the silent speeches passed between trees. There's a kind of reverence in how the forest treats the aftermath. No tree rushes to replace what was lost. Instead, it leans gently into the lessons. Scientists call this plasticity, the ability of living systems to change their structure or function in response to stress. But in the forest, it feels more like wisdom. A young tree doesn't try to grow taller immediately after a storm. It listens. It waits. It studies the light, the air, the signals in the soil. Then, only then, does it stretch, not because it must, but because the moment is right. And this kind of listening, this patience, is mirrored in the rhythms of the entire ecosystem. The birds do not rush to rebuild their nests. They choose their branches carefully, guided by new scents and shapes. The insects shift their colonies slowly, sensing which leaves carry chemical signs of stability. Even the larger animals tread gently, adjusting their paths around fallen trunks and shifted canopies. The entire rainforest seems to move as one breathing organism, deeply attuned to itself. Above all, there is no bitterness. The trees do not curse the sky. They do not tremble at the memory of lightning. Instead, they grow with it. They weave it into their limbs. They let it shape their future. Some trees bear marks of lightning strikes for decades, dark, spiral scars that twist around the trunk like tattoos. These marks do not weaken the tree. They become part of its identity, proof that it stood through fire and thunder and still continued to rise. And when the next storm comes, the forest will not start from nothing. It will begin with everything it has learned. The electrical signals will return, yes, but this time the responses will be wiser. The roots will be deeper. The branches will bend more gracefully. The leaves will tighten their pores just a little sooner. This is how the rainforest endures, not through brute strength, but through layered memory and collective response. Let's return for a moment to that single tall tree. The storm has long passed, its bark is drying, its leaves are open once more. But if you could listen closely, truly listen, not with ears but with understanding, you might hear a hum beneath the surface. A current of life, a memory of lightning, a message moving from root to tip. The tree does not fear what came. It honors it. It lives differently because of it. This is what the Amazon teaches. that storms are not interruptions but instructions, that thunder is not a threat but a voice, and that the trees, silent as they may seem, are among the most eloquent speakers of all. They talk not with words but with action, with chemistry, with quiet resilience. And in doing so, they remind us that true strength is not loud. It listens, it remembers, and it bends with grace. So the next time the sky darkens and the thunder begins to growl in the distance, remember the forest. Picture the trees standing tall, not in fear but in readiness. They are not waiting to suffer. They are waiting to respond. And when the rain begins to fall, they will speak once more in pulses, in scent, in quiet courage. They will speak of life, of connection, of the wisdom that only comes when we learn how to listen, even through the storm. Beneath the thick layers of green, where light is softened into emerald mist and the air tastes of damp wood and quiet roots, the forest breathes, not just through movement but through every living surface. The canopy above may shimmer in the sun, stretching high like a vaulted ceiling, but below in the understory and the soil something deeper unfolds. Here, in the low, shaded realm of ferns, fungi, and stillness, the forest takes its breath. It is a slow, silent inhaling, a pulsing of gases and water vapor, an exchange invisible to the eye but vital to the life of all. The breath beneath the canopy is not like ours, rising and falling with each heartbeat. It is older, steadier, bound to the rhythm of leaves and soil and sky. Every leaf, from the grand fronds of a banana plant to the delicate lace of a fern, participates in this breath. Through tiny pores called stomata, they take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. But this is not just a one-way gift. Trees exhale moisture too, through a process called transpiration. Water drawn up from deep roots moves through the trunk, reaches the leaves, and then escapes into the air as vapor. This quiet exhalation rises through the canopy, thickening the atmosphere above the forest. Over time, these collective breaths form clouds, and eventually, those clouds become rain, falling back to the soil like the return of a borrowed sigh. In the Amazon, this breathing cycle is so vast and so powerful that it shapes entire weather patterns. Scientists now know that a large portion of the region's rainfall is not delivered by ocean winds or distant clouds, but by the forest itself, rain created by the moisture it breathes into the sky. This phenomenon is known as the biotic pump. It means the trees are not just recipients of rain, they are makers of it. Through countless small acts of inhaling and exhaling, the forest creates its own climate. The breath beneath the canopy travels upward, becomes sky, becomes storm, and returns again to feed the breath once more. But this breathing is not uniform. It changes throughout the day and across the seasons. At dawn, the breath is slow and cool, filled with moisture from the night. As sunlight filters in, photosynthesis awakens and the breath deepens. Stomata open wider. Leaves drink in the light and air. Moisture rises. By afternoon, the forest exhales at its strongest, the canopy trembling with invisible steam. By evening, the breath slows again, the leaves closing like eyelids, resting until the next light returns. It is a cycle not unlike sleep and waking. The forest breathes with the sun. Yet there's more to this respiration than air and moisture. Deep within the soil, under tangled roots and ancient leaves, microbes and fungi also take part in the breathing. They break down fallen wood and decomposing plants, releasing carbon dioxide into the earth's lungs. Worms stir the soil. Bacteria feast and multiply. Every process contributes to the inhaling and exhaling of the land. This breath below is slower, deeper, and darker, but no less important. Without it, the trees above could not live. The canopy may look like the crown of the forest, but the breath begins in the dirt. Even in the absence of wind, the forest moves. You can feel it if you stand still long enough. The air is never truly still. It is thick with moisture, charged with scent, stirred by the rising breath of 1,000 leaves. That breath carries messages. It transports pollen, spores, and pheromones. It tells plants when to flower, when to brace for drought, when to share or store. The air beneath the canopy is a conversation between species, between layers of life, between earth and sky. Some trees in the Amazon have developed special adaptations to guide this breath. The kapok tree, for example, with its towering height and broad, buttersoft leaves, creates massive updrafts of moisture. Its surface area and vertical stretch allow it to act like a chimney, funneling water vapor upward. Around it, smaller plants benefit from the localized cloud cover and cooler microclimate. In this way, a single tree can influence the breath of its neighbors, shaping the very air they live in. And it's not just plants that breathe here. The animals do too, of course, but more importantly, they contribute to the rhythm. Frogs call at dusk, their voices vibrating the air. Birds rustle and flap, stirring currents. Insects swarm, buzz, and hum. Every motion, every flutter stirs the breath. Even the stillness of a jaguar, crouched and hidden, holds a weight in the air. In the Amazon, breathing is not an individual act. It is a shared rhythm, a common song. Consider for a moment the journey of a single molecule of water vapor. It begins in the soil, pulled upward by thirsty roots. It travels through xylem, flows past knots and scars, through the green labyrinth of leaf veins. It is pushed out through stomata, joining the warm air beneath the canopy. It rises, joins other molecules, becomes mist. It drifts upward, condenses, becomes cloud. And then in time it falls as rain, perhaps not far away, perhaps on the same leaf it once left. This breath is not linear. It is a circle, a sacred exhale returned. Some indigenous cultures of the Amazon speak of the forest as a living being, and the breath beneath the canopy as its spirit. They describe it not in terms of science but of presence, the feeling that the forest is awake, aware, and always breathing around you. And now, science begins to catch up with these ancient truths. Instruments placed in the canopy record fluctuations in gases and temperature so subtle, yet so constant, that they mimic the pulse of a living organism. In this way, the rainforest lives not just in its trees and creatures, but in the breath that binds them all. So if you find yourself beneath the canopy one quiet morning after the mist has lifted but before the sun begins to burn, pause. Let the stillness wrap around you, close your eyes, and breathe with the forest. You may feel your own lungs slow, matching the ancient rhythm. You may sense the moisture rising, the air thickening, the slow exhale of a million leaves. It is not a place. It is a being. It is not a sound. It is a breath. And you in that moment are part of it. As the forest exhales, not all of its breath escapes upward. Some lingers, trapped beneath the canopy, curling around trunks, slipping through vines, and settling in shaded hollows where moss softens stone and silence stretches long. Here, in these quiet places, the breath thickens with memory. It carries the echoes of old seasons, of floods and dry spells, of mornings soaked in gold mist and nights lit only by the shimmer of fireflies. The air beneath the canopy is layered not just with gases, but with time. Each tree remembers, not through thought but through its patterns of respiration, how it regulates its stomata, how it lifts water from deep earth, how it exhales moisture into the sky. These responses are shaped by past experience. A tree that endured drought may learn to close its pores earlier to hold its breath longer. A tree accustomed to flooding may grow broader stomatal openings, exhaling faster when air is scarce. These aren't guesses. They're decisions rooted in memory and passed down through growth. The forest does not forget how to breathe. And the soil remembers too. Beneath the fallen leaves, networks of fungal threads stretch in every direction, linking root to root, tree to sapling, fern to fungus. These threads, so fine, so quiet, carry more than nutrients. They carry chemical whispers that help regulate the breath of the forest. When one tree exhales stress hormones during a hot day, others nearby begin to adjust. When the soil grows dry, fungi shift their patterns, choosing which roots to nourish first. It's not control. It's cooperation. And it all happens beneath the surface, unseen but constant. This coordination becomes especially vital during the changing of seasons. Though the Amazon is evergreen, it does have dry spells and wetter phases, and each change adjusts the forest's respiration. During the drier months, the breath becomes slower, more measured. Trees close more stomata, conserving water. Fewer clouds form. The forest warms. But when the rains return, the breath quickens. Leaves open wide. Moisture rises, clouds gather once more. In this way, the forest adjusts the rhythm of its breathing to match the needs of its heart, the balance between water, air, and light. But perhaps the most mysterious part of this breath lies not in what the forest releases, but in what it absorbs. Each tree takes in carbon dioxide and converts it into sugar, storing energy for future growth. Yet this carbon doesn't stay locked in wood forever. Some of it feeds microbes in the soil. Some of it is exhaled again during the night. Some is transferred to other plants through root networks. The breath of the forest is not just oxygen and vapor. It is carbon, recycled through 1,000 hands. And the air itself, what we might call empty space, is alive with interactions. Tiny aerosols released by leaves, seeds, and soil drift upward with the moisture. These aerosols are not just passive particles. They help form clouds by providing surfaces for water vapor to cling to. In this way, the breath of the forest creates its own sky. The trees shape the clouds and the clouds return the rain. The cycle closes. The forest breathes itself into being again and again. It's easy to overlook this when standing in the thick of it. The canopy overhead feels vast, the air feels still, but even in apparent stillness, the breath continues. Some researchers have found that the Amazon's contribution to atmospheric moisture is so significant that when parts of the forest are cleared, rainfall patterns change far beyond the immediate area. Croplands dry, rivers shrink. The breath has been interrupted, and with it, life shifts. This is why many call the rainforest the lungs of the earth. But the metaphor is incomplete. The forest does not breathe just for itself. It breathes for the planet. The moisture it exhales becomes rain for mountains and deserts. The oxygen it releases travels the globe. Even the scent of the forest, those rich, earthy aromas carried by the wind, affect weather and climate. The breath of the forest reaches far beyond its borders, a gift to everything that lives. And this breath is old. Long before humans mapped continents or named clouds, the forest was breathing. Long before electricity or engines or the slicing of trees into paper, the leaves inhaled and exhaled in peace. The breath of the Amazon has shaped the sky for millions of years. It has seen glaciers come and go. It has endured lightning and drought. It has filled the lungs of creatures no longer alive, and it continues now, soft as ever, ancient and essential. It is not unchanging. In recent decades, the balance of this breath has shifted. With trees being lost, the rhythm becomes uneven. In some regions, the forest begins to release more carbon than it absorbs. The lungs begin to wheeze. The air grows heavier. Scientists measure this imbalance in ppm, in parts per million. But to the forest, it is felt in light, in heat, in the absence of song where once frogs called under rain-heavy skies. The breath is slowing in places, but it has not yet stopped. Because where trees remain, the breath continues. In reserves, in remote corners, in pockets where roots are deep and the canopy is unbroken, the forest still exhales in full rhythm, still calls the clouds, still lifts the mist each morning, still feeds the air with secrets we do not yet understand. And in these places, the breath beneath the canopy is more than just air. It is life speaking softly, continually, without end. So if you ever wonder how a place so vast could be so silent, remember this. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of breath. And in the Amazon, that breath carries everything: water, wisdom, warning, and hope. It moves around you like a tide, invisible and vital. And once you've felt it, truly felt it, you'll never mistake stillness for quiet again. You'll know the forest is breathing, and you, for a moment, are breathing with it. The sun leans westward, painting the canopy in gold, and still the forest breathes. But now the rhythm changes once more. The intense heat of the afternoon softens. The stomata, which opened wide in morning light and reached toward the peak of day, now begin to close. The breath beneath the canopy slows, not in fear or fatigue, but in rest. As the shadows lengthen, the forest enters its evening exhale. And with it, the air begins to cool, the mist begins to rise, and a new kind of silence settles in, one not of stillness, but of surrender. In this quiet exhalation, the forest releases the warmth it held. Leaves that trembled with sunlight now grow heavy with moisture. Vines, once stretched and reaching, curl gently into rest. The moss on ancient trunks thickens, dark and saturated. This is when the breath turns inward, when the exhale becomes a lullaby, guiding every living thing into evening's embrace. The frogs begin to sing again, sensing the rising humidity. Insects stir from hidden hollows. The first bats flutter out like shadows on wings. The night breath begins, and it is no less essential than the day. At night, the forest does not photosynthesize. It cannot draw light into sugar, but it still breathes. In the darkness, trees and plants continue to exchange gases, absorbing oxygen, releasing carbon dioxide. This shift is gentle yet profound. It marks the transition from production to restoration, from growth to regeneration, from output to balance. Even the soil cools and changes, releasing tiny clouds of microbial life into the air. Beneath your feet, the roots hum with slow activity, redistributing moisture, sharing nutrients, sending whispers through fungal threads that glow faintly in the dampness of night. And while our human eyes might struggle to see in the low light, the forest continues without pause. Certain flowers bloom only now, their petals unfolding under moonlight, offering nectar to creatures of the dark. The breath beneath the canopy changes flavor, earthier, denser, tinged with the scent of night-blooming vines and decaying fruit. It is richer, thicker. Every inhalation carries the trace of 1,000 transformations, ripening, rotting, blooming, resting. This is the breath of becoming, of allowing, of letting go. Above, the canopy exhales mist that floats upward like smoke from a dreaming giant. Scientists have captured this vapor with delicate sensors and found it saturated with life. Microbes, spores, fragments of scent and water, molecules of memory. What rises is not just moisture, it is the forest itself, sent into the sky in particles too small to see. They drift with the clouds, sometimes traveling thousands of miles, seeding rain in other lands, feeding rivers born of distant winds. In this way, the breath beneath the canopy does not remain trapped. It journeys outward, touching the world beyond. And the trees, those silent giants, continue their night work. They filter the air, repair their cells, stretch their roots deeper into cool soil. They draw water from the earth and hold it for the coming day. They strengthen the scaffolding of new leaves, reinforce buds, thicken stems. Even in rest, they are preparing. Each breath is an investment in tomorrow's growth. Each pause is not an end but a promise. The forest at night is not asleep. It is reflecting. It is integrating the energy gathered through the sunlit hours. And this reflection is not solitary. It is communal. Through the interconnected root systems, signals of the day's changes are still traveling. A storm earlier in the afternoon may prompt some trees to brace, others to adjust their growth. A patch of drought may trigger support from neighboring roots. Even fallen trees whose breath has ceased give back to the system, becoming pathways for fungi, shelter for insects, nutrients for new growth. Nothing is lost. Everything is breathed back in. This cycle, this infinite loop of give and receive, of exhale and inhale, is the core of the Amazon. Its breath does not stop when the sun sets. It shifts, deepens, slows, but it endures. And it reminds us that breathing is not just the act of drawing in air. It is the act of participating, of contributing, of belonging. In the Amazon, even the smallest breath is part of a larger pattern, a collective rhythm that keeps the world alive. And in that rhythm there is peace. There is no rush, no competition, only balance. One tree's breath becomes another's breeze. One plant's exhale becomes another's drink. The moisture in the air becomes rain. The rain becomes root. The root becomes leaf. And the leaf breathes again. It is a sacred spiral turning endlessly beneath the green. So as night fully settles and the stars begin to appear beyond the shifting mist, imagine the forest breathing around you. Imagine each molecule of vapor rising from the warm soil, curling around trunks, lifting through the leaves, slipping into the sky. You may not hear it, but it is there, constant, gentle, eternal. The breath beneath the canopy does not end. It only changes form. And somewhere in that breath, quiet and unseen, is the memory of the day and the hope of tomorrow. The rainforest sleeps, yes, but only lightly. Its breath continues. Its heart still beats in vapor and leaf and soil. And you, even if just for a moment, have been allowed to listen. Beneath the dense weave of vines and leaves, beneath the carpets of moss and fallen fruit, and far below the whisper of footsteps, the rainforest hides its memory. It lives not in words or songs, but in water, its absence, its return, its rhythm through time. The roots of the forest are not just anchors. They are archivists. They remember where the rivers once flowed, where the floods once kissed the land, where the moisture once lingered long after the rains had gone. These memories are not preserved in stone or scroll, but in fiber and form, in the way roots twist and reach, in how they wait for the return of water like a forgotten friend. The Amazon is shaped by water in motion. Every season, the rivers swell and shrink, guided by distant rains and mountain melt far beyond the jungle's edge. This breathing of the river, this rise and fall changes everything, and the trees remember. Their roots follow the rhythm. They reach downward when waters recede, chasing moisture deep in the soil. They widen and flatten when floods arrive, holding the earth in place like fingers gripping soft clay. And they do not guess where the water will go. They know. In the Varzea, the seasonally flooded forests of the Amazon, trees grow with their roots submerged for months at a time. These trees are shaped by memory. Their roots contain air pockets like tiny lungs, allowing them to breathe even underwater. Their bark resists rot. Their leaves tolerate the touch of silt-rich currents. And when the flood retreats, those same trees shift again. Roots tighten. Branches stretch. Growth resumes on land newly revealed. This dance is not reactive, it is ritual. Year after year, the forest adjusts, remembering the exact rhythm of the river. Even trees far from the main waterways carry this memory. Rainfall shapes small streams and underground flows that appear and vanish with the seasons. The roots trace these paths. They create corridors through which moisture moves, guiding it with invisible fingers. Some roots grow wide and shallow, drinking from fleeting puddles and morning dew. Others dive deep into the earth, chasing aquifers that have fed the land for centuries. Each tree chooses its path not blindly, but with knowledge coded in generations of survival. And this memory doesn't exist in isolation. Through the mycorrhizal networks beneath the soil, roots share their findings. When one tree finds a hidden vein of moisture, others nearby shift their roots toward it. Fungal threads carry messages of hydration and drought, of fertility and decay. A young sapling born in a time of dryness may receive signals from older trees about where water has always been. In this way, the forest does not relearn the river every year, it recalls it. This recalling extends beyond location. Roots remember timing. They grow in sync with the expected arrival of water. Some trees in the Amazon begin flowering or dropping leaves in advance of the flood, guided by signals from the roots. These roots sense moisture shifts underground days or even weeks before the surface changes. It's a form of anticipation that resembles intuition, but it is science made soft. Memory, stored in tissues and triggered by touch. Even the shape of the forest floor reflects this knowing. In flood-prone areas, roots interlock like nets, catching silt and slowing erosion. On slopes, they fan outward, channeling runoff toward lower layers. Some species have evolved root structures that can shift direction during their growth, sensing gradients in water and nutrients. They are sculptors, shaping the land while responding to its whisper. Their growth is not frantic, it is aware. Let's imagine a single root tip, no wider than a strand of hair, reaching through the dark. It does not move randomly. It tastes the soil, senses the minerals, detects the slight pull of moisture in one direction. It moves, not with speed but with certainty. Over days and weeks, this tip becomes a branch. That branch becomes part of a greater system. And soon, a network of roots traces an invisible river that no eye can see. Yet the tree above thrives, because the roots remember where water once passed and trust that it will return. And when the rain does fall, the memory becomes a map. Water follows paths carved by roots long ago, sliding easily into channels already made, filling pockets shaped by generations of growth. The forest does not need to panic or scramble. It receives the water like a guest it has hosted many times before. Leaves glisten, stems swell. The entire system responds with grace because it has been here before. This is the gift of remembering. Even fallen trees become part of this memory. As their trunks decay, their roots remain for a time, hollow, collapsed, but still directing water and soil. New plants grow along these paths, guided by the old. This is the language of succession, not starting over but continuing the story from a remembered place. The rivers, too, shift over time, changing course, carving new paths, but the forest learns. It adjusts. It adapts. It recalls the way water moved, and it listens for the signs that it will move again. Some researchers have begun mapping these invisible waterways, the root-shaped rivers beneath the forest floor, and found that they mirror the branching of rivers above. The pattern is fractal, repeating itself in trunk, branch, root, and stream. This symmetry is not accidental. It is the result of memory made visible. The roots grow in patterns shaped by the flow of water, and the water flows in response to the guidance of roots. They are partners, dancers, mirrors to one another. So when you walk through the Amazon and feel the sponge of the earth beneath your feet, know that you are stepping on memory. That springiness, that scent, that silence, it's the history of water, remembered by wood. And in each tree you pass, in each fern and vine and flower, there is a root reaching out below, following the story of a river that once passed there, and may pass again. As the waters ebb and flow through the living veins of the rainforest, the memory within the roots deepens. This is not memory in the way we hold images or words. It is older, slower, and far more enduring. It is memory written in the direction a root chooses to grow, in the angle it curves, in the way it splits when soil turns rocky or softens with dampness. Every turn is a record, every fork a journal entry. Together, they create a living map beneath the surface, an archive of the forest's long conversation with water. The roots of some trees begin their lives by diving straight down, searching. Others splay wide, exploring. Each species has its own memory of water's behavior, passed through seeds, honed through generations. Trees that thrive in high ground where water is sparse and brief build tight, fibrous networks that gather what little moisture they can from the thin film clinging to soil grains. In contrast, trees from lowland areas, used to seasonal floods, grow sponge-like root pads that hold water for weeks. These aren't mere habits, they are blueprints shaped by the river's moods. Beneath the soil, where it's cool and quiet, the roots reach without eyes but with perfect direction. Some have been shown to sense even faint sound vibrations of moving water. Others follow chemical gradients, detecting traces of minerals and salts left behind by previous floods. It's as though the roots remember not only where the water has been, but what it tasted like. This chemical memory influences how roots divide, when they thicken, when they slow, and when they risk stretching further into unknown depths. But water in the Amazon is never still for long. It shifts with the sky, with the moon, with the push of air from faraway coasts, and the roots adapt. During drought, older roots begin to harden, conserving energy. Meanwhile, exploratory roots venture deeper, probing. Some trees shed shallow roots to protect their deeper systems. Others thicken their outer bark to prevent desiccation. These changes are triggered by subtle signals, tiny shifts in internal pressure, fluctuations in cellular moisture, or messages sent through root hormones like abscisic acid. Each decision is small, but together, they create resilience born of memory. And it's not just a memory of wet or dry, it's a memory of rhythm. Certain plants know when to flower based on the timing of the floods. Their roots sense when the soil begins to cool and swell, an early sign of water's return. Before a drop touches the surface, the plant begins its shift, pushing buds upward, preparing seeds, strengthening stalks. This is not prophecy, it's recall. The flood came at this time last year, and the year before, and before that. The pattern holds, and so the plant prepares. Even in years when the river is late, the roots wait patiently, trusting the rhythm carved into their tissues. This kind of deep-rooted awareness has been studied in trees like the macacarcuya and the camu-camu, which thrive in floodplain forests. These species do not panic when submerged for weeks. Instead, their roots switch metabolic pathways, functioning in low oxygen. Their entire cellular structure shifts into a different gear, slower, more efficient, resistant to decay. It is not stress but a learned adaptation. And when the water recedes, the roots shift back, almost as if exhaling. The breath of the tree changes with the tide, and the roots lead the way. This guidance doesn't stop at individual trees. Through interconnected root systems, one tree's memory influences others. In times of drought, trees with better access to water have been observed transferring sugars to their drier neighbors. This isn't accidental, it's communication and care. It's the forest remembering together. The fungi that bridge these connections act like translators, passing nutrients and signals across species. In one part of the forest, a tree remembers a flood. In another, a tree remembers a fire. Through their roots, they share these stories, and together they shape how the forest responds the next time. Even when a river shifts its path and abandons a region for decades, the roots remain aware. In the soil, water leaves behind clues, tiny differences in pH, salt content, compactness. The roots recognize these echoes. They sense where water once was and gently steer toward those places, hopeful and prepared. Sometimes they grow into dry riverbeds and find nothing, but still they reach, guided by the possibility that memory offers. And sometimes a new rain returns, filling the old river once more, as if answering the roots' long-held prayer. Animals, too, learn from this hidden breath. Capybaras and tapirs often dig at the base of certain trees, knowing the soil will be soft and damp. They rely on the trees' roots to lead them to water. Birds follow flowering signals, trusting that when roots sense moisture, blooms will come soon after. Insects nest in tree hollows that swell during the rainy season, knowing their eggs will hatch in sync with returning floods. The forest moves as one organism, not only above, where life flourishes in light, but below, where memory takes root and guides it all. And through all of this, the deep growth, the stretching, the shifting, the roots do not forget. They hold not just water but wisdom, not just direction but intention. When trees fall, their roots do not vanish immediately. They remain a while, nourishing the soil, slowly fatting, slowly passing on the memory of where water once passed and where it may pass again. This is the long breath of the forest. It is not a gasp, it is a hum, a murmur beneath the surface, a promise carved into root and rain. So as you walk the shaded trails of the Amazon and you feel the dampness underfoot, know that what lies beneath is more than soil. It is a vast memory, older than books, deeper than sound. The roots beneath you are not lost. They are listening. They are remembering. And they are waiting quietly, patiently, for the river to speak again. There comes a moment just after the flood recedes when the forest seems to pause, not in silence but in still awareness. The roots, long soaked and stretched, hold their position. The leaves, freshly washed, glisten with the last beads of retreating water. The river's voice has quieted, but the memory it leaves behind is still humming through the ground. This is the moment the forest begins again, not from nothing, but from everything it remembers. Roots that were shaped by the weight of water do not forget how it felt. They do not rush to return to their dry form. They adjust gently, like waking from a dream, listening once more to the earth and preparing for whatever rhythm may come next. As the soil settles, its layers rearranged by the flood's passage, the roots begin a slow reshaping. Some loosen their grip, allowing space for air. Others tighten, anchoring the trunk against erosion. Thin white rootlets stretch outward, drawn to fresh minerals left behind in the wake of the water. Every action is quiet but deeply purposeful. The forest does not rebuild, it adapts. It does not resist change. It accepts it and makes it part of its design. The water has left its story, and the roots are already writing the next chapter. This is where resilience lives, not in the towering strength of a trunk or the width of a canopy, but in the choices made below where no one sees. The roots teach the tree how to stand again. They remind it which way the river once moved. They guide nutrients upward and send messages outward. Even when storms topple giants, their roots remain twisted, splayed, upturned in the air like fingers once clutching the sky. And still, within them, there is a memory. Their shape tells of the seasons they survived, the floods they fed on, the soil they loved. Other plants will grow beside them, draw from them, inherit their wisdom. Even in decay, the roots remember. In the parts of the forest where the river has long since shifted, leaving behind only ghost paths of clay and loam, the roots still stretch toward those forgotten streams. There's a reverence to this reaching, as if the trees know that even lost water can return. Some years it does. Rainstorms push new flows into old beds, ponds bloom where there were none, and the roots are there to catch them, not with surprise but with welcome. This is not hope. This is preparation. This is memory acting as a promise. The root systems of some ancient trees are so wide and complex that they become entire ecosystems. Animals burrow into the hollows between them. Frogs find pools in root cups. Fungi thrive in the moist darkness. In these underground cities, breath and life continue even when the forest above quiets. The roots not only remember rivers, they become rivers, channeling water, carrying nutrients, guiding all who live among them. The forest is not just fed by rivers. It is a river, flowing inward, downward, and back again through its living foundation. When researchers dig into these root systems, they sometimes find patterns that resemble the shape of tributaries, not just in function but in form. The way a root forks, bends, and narrows mirrors the way rivers split and meander. It's as if the tree is echoing the water it once touched, or perhaps the river is echoing the tree. The relationship is not linear. It is circular, recursive, layered with remembrance. One shapes the other again and again. And this interweaving of memory goes beyond individual trees. Across the Amazon, forest corridors exist that were once riverbeds. Now dry, they are lined with trees whose roots follow the shape of the water that carved the land ages ago. These corridors are rich with life. Soil fertility remains high. Moisture lingers longer in their depths. The forest grows differently there, more confident, more lush. Even without flowing water, the roots recall its touch. They form a chorus, singing a song only the land understands. The final gift of the roots is their patience. Unlike leaves that change with seasons or flowers that bloom and fade, roots move slowly. Their memory is not reactionary. It is built over time, shaped by layers of experience. When a seed first sends down a root, it does so in faith. But with each flood, each drought, that root gathers knowledge. It deepens, thickens, branches. And someday that root may guide the next seed, pointing it toward water, toward shelter, toward life. The forest remembers because the roots do not forget. So as night falls again and the forest breathes in darkness, the roots remain at work. Beneath the stillness they are listening, sensing shifts in moisture and pressure in the soft murmur of deep earth. The river may be far now. The rain may not come for days, but the roots are ready. They always are. Because to be rooted is not to be still. It is to be aware, to remember, to reach. And somewhere under your feet in the quiet hush below moss and mulch, there is a root tracing the memory of a river. It knows where the water has been. It knows where it may return. And in the deep silence of the soil, it holds that memory like a song hummed under breath, soft, unending, and true. Beneath the soft rustle of leaves and the distant cries of birds, beneath the slithering vines and scattered fruit, there is something older moving in silence, the pulse of the jungle floor. It beats not like a heart, but like breath spread wide across the soil, rising and falling in rhythms too slow for the eye but too vital to be missed. It pulses with life not measured by sound, but by motion, the gentle shift of microbes in the soil, the curling of a worm beneath a root, the slow breaking down of fallen leaves into the food of the next life. Here, in the low places of the rainforest, the story of life is not written in branches or skis, but in decay, in transformation, in the steady thrum of a world that never stops renewing itself. Every footstep on the jungle floor lands on a tapestry of past seasons. Fallen flowers, old bark, the dust of insects, the bones of animals, and the petals of forgotten blooms, all of it gathers here, but it does not lie still. The forest floor is not a graveyard. It is a womb. Everything that dies in the rainforest returns to this surface, and there it is received not with sorrow but with purpose. Fungi bloom in quiet explosions. Bacteria awaken. Insects feast and scatter. What was once leaf becomes nourishment. What was once stem becomes thread in the web of growth. The jungle floor breathes, and in its breath is the beginning of everything. This pulse moves with heat and with rain. After a downpour, the scent of earth thickens, rich, dark, alive. That scent is the smell of transformation, of billions of organisms springing into action. The moisture stirs the fungal networks, thin, lacy mycelium that stretch beneath the soil like the forest's nervous system. These threads connect roots and wood and rot, breaking down what once stood tall and sending its pieces into the roots of the living. The fungi do not feed alone. They share. Through these networks, trees exchange nutrients and messages. The floor is not passive. It is the central exchange, the great table around which the forest gathers to survive. And the animals know this. Tapirs sniff along the base of ancient trunks, unearthing shoots fed by buried fruit. Armadillos dig shallow burrows, hunting beetles that nest in the loam. Birds pick through fallen leaves for seeds released by the crash of ripened pods. Even jaguars, silent as ghosts, leave their weight behind in prints pressed into the soft earth. The floor remembers every movement. It holds the marks, the scents, the trails. It is not just the bottom. It is the memory of the day, the witness of every life that passed above. Some scientists call the jungle floor a detrital engine, a place where death fuels life. But that word detritus misses the poetry, because what is discarded here is never wasted. A fallen branch becomes home for fungi. A rotting fruit births insects. A dead tree over time becomes the nurse log for 100 new lives. Everything is used. Everything is needed. Nothing is trash. The pulse of the floor ensures this, sorting and spreading the nutrients through tiny hands and mouths and cells. It is not a machine. It is a living system with memory and intent. The structure of the floor changes from place to place. In some areas, thick roots stretch across the surface, twisting like ropes left behind by giants. In others, the ground is soft and spongy, covered in thick carpets of moss and leaf litter. Each surface breathes differently. The root-covered ground exhales slowly, retaining moisture, sheltering seedlings. The mossy beds pulse faster, absorbing and releasing rain in quick bursts. Insects thrive in both, adjusting their rhythms to the breath of their chosen home. And this breath is full of messages. Some seeds only sprout when touched by certain fungi found in the soil. Others wait for chemical signals triggered by decay. The forest floor speaks in molecules, in pH shifts, in bursts of carbon dioxide that rise like invisible smoke. The trees feel these changes. Their roots respond, growing faster or slower depending on what the floor tells them. In times of abundance, the pulse is steady. In times of drought, it weakens. But it never stops. Even in the driest months, the floor hums with stored potential. Now imagine kneeling down, pressing your palm against the jungle floor. You wouldn't feel a heartbeat, but if you waited long enough, you'd feel warmth. You'd see movement, a beetle disappearing, a shoot curling upward, a mushroom swelling in silence. You smell the richness, the complexity, the life. You might notice how the soil shifts ever so slightly beneath your hand. Not from wind, but from the slow dance of things becoming other things, of life becoming death and back again. This is the pulse, gentle, relentless, eternal. The rainforest floor is often overlooked in favor of its towering canopy, its vibrant birds, its drama in the branches. But without the floor, the forest could not rise. The canopy grows only because the soil below feeds it. The nutrients in the tallest leaves began their journey in the shadows, in the rot, in the breath of earthworms and ants and fungi. This is a story of humility, of beginnings, of how greatness starts from darkness and becomes light through the patient work of time. Even the air just above the jungle floor is different. It is thicker, cooler, more fragrant. It carries spores and scents, the language of the underworld. It tells bees where to forage. It guides reptiles to eggs buried days before. It alerts predators to prey. It holds messages not written in sound but in breath, whispers of transformation that only those close to the earth can hear. And so the creatures of the floor walk slowly, pausing often, reading the air like a scroll. To live close to the ground is to be close to memory, to the past returned and remade, to the future growing out of rot and loss. The pulse beneath your feet is not just the present, it is every fallen leaf, every broken stem, every life returned. It is the wisdom of the earth made visible in texture and scent and shift. And though it may not roar like the howler monkey or shimmer like the toucan's wing, it sings in its own way, in the slow bloom of mushrooms, in the glisten of decay, in the rising mist after rain. It sings of renewal. When night falls on the Amazon, the pulse of the jungle floor does not rest, it changes tempo. What had been slow and subtle becomes layered with new rhythms. The sounds above may hush as birds settle into nests, but below, a new orchestra awakens. The soil stirs with the shuffling of nocturnal creatures. Millipedes trace ancient paths, their countless feet ticking over moss. Beetles push through loam like miners in a living mine. Frogs, drawn by moisture, hop between decaying trunks, their bellies pressed to the damp earth. Each movement, each breath adds to the floor's quiet heartbeat. The jungle never truly sleeps. It dreams in motion. Beneath the surface, microbial life surges. The fall of temperature and rise in humidity set off invisible waves of activity. Fungi bloom in the dark, delicate fans and ghostly cups appearing where none had been the day before. Some glow faintly, bioluminescent patches painting the forest floor with silent light. Spores release into the air, carried by currents stirred by the beat of insect wings. Decomposers get to work in earnest, breaking down everything the day has left behind. Fallen petals, scattered seeds, and the shed skin of snakes slipping into shadow. This transformation is not death. It is continuation. The pulse quickens not with fear but with purpose. The trees above sense this shift. Roots extend their reach, subtle but sure, toward pockets of nutrient-rich decay. They feed in the dark, drawing sustenance from rot and residue. But this isn't a one-way exchange. As the roots take, they also give. Some exude sugars into the soil, feeding bacteria and forming relationships with fungi that help them absorb water and minerals. This is the hidden trade, the silent market of the forest, and all of it flows through the pulse of the floor. In this market, nothing is wasted. A seed dropped by a monkey becomes a future tree, its chances shaped by where it lands, on bare ground, on decomposing wood, in the cradle of a root hollow. If it falls on fertile ground, it listens to the soil. It waits. Only when the pulse signals that the time is right, when nutrients are present, when moisture lingers, will it begin to unfold. The seed trusts the ground because the ground remembers. Animals that live near or within the soil play their part in guiding this rhythm. Earthworms churn the soil, mixing its layers, creating pockets for air and water. Ants carry leaves into their underground farms, feeding their fungal crops, enriching the floor with complex nutrients. Termites build towers and tunnels, aerating and shaping the ground. These creatures are not mindless. They are engineers of the pulse, sculptors of the breath that feeds the roots and through them the trees. Even the carcass of a fallen bird or mammal is not an end. It becomes food for beetles, worms, fungi, and finally, the soil itself. The calcium in its bones, the nitrogen in its muscles, the iron in its blood, all of it is taken in, dissolved, and returned to circulation. The forest knows how to make use of everything, and this wisdom lies in the floor. Above, the branches sway. But below, the body of the forest lies in constant renewal, constantly ready to receive. Rainfall adds another layer to this rhythm. When drops hit the canopy, their sound is soft and scattered. But when they strike the ground, they awaken the floor. Pores in the soil open. Mushrooms drink deeply. The scent of wet earth rises, thick and clean. Seeds that have waited in silence begin to crack open. Some respond to the sound alone, reacting to the percussion of falling water as if it were a drumbeat signaling the start of life. These rain-activated seeds trust the rhythm of the floor more than the sunlight above. They are born in the dark, rising only when the pulse says it is time. And so the jungle floor is not merely a background. It is the conductor of the forest's slow symphony. It regulates the tempo of life. It feeds the hunger of growing things. It receives the discarded and transforms it into the desired. Trees are only as strong as the floor that holds them. Flowers bloom only because of the nourishment that pulses upward through root and stem. Even the air is shaped by what happens below. The breath of the forest is born not just in leaves, but in the soil. When researchers examine the floor, They find complexity that challenges imagination. A single gram of rainforest soil can contain billions of organisms, bacteria, archaea, fungi, protozoa, all in delicate balance. Each plays a role in decomposing, recycling, communicating. These microorganisms are ancient. Some have existed in nearly the same form for hundreds of millions of years. They are older than the trees above them, older than the rivers, older than many mountains. And still they labor, endlessly renewing the forest one microscopic breath at a time. These invisible workers shape what we see. They determine which trees thrive, which seeds sprout, which animals find food. They regulate the storage of carbon, the release of nutrients, the creation of rain. They are the hidden architects of the Amazon, and their stage is the floor. It is not grand, it is not high, but it is sacred, and it is alive. So the next time you picture the Amazon, don't look only upward. Look down. Imagine what lies beneath the moss and mulch, the shifting particles, the ancient fungi, the sleeping seeds, the dancing roots. Imagine a breath that rises not from lungs, but from layers of life pressing into each other. Imagine a rhythm too slow to hear, but too deep to miss. This is the pulse of the jungle floor. It has no voice, but it sings in every leaf, every fruit, every animal that walks above. It is the song of beginning, and it never ends. As dawn returns, soft and filtered through the highest leaves, the pulse of the jungle floor continues, not resetting, not starting over, but shifting once more. The warmth of morning light seeps down through the canopy in golden strands, gently warming the earth below. It does not rush, it caresses. This light, faint though it is beneath layers of green, awakens another rhythm in the soil. Seeds begin to stir again. The mycelium threads respond. The moisture begins to rise, pulled up by roots like breath drawn into lungs. Above, the birds sing. Below, the forest prepares. The pulse is no longer the quiet humming of night. It is the soft throb of beginning again. And yet nothing that has happened is forgotten. The jungle floor holds the stories of everything that came before. Every storm, every bloom, every death and bloom again. It remembers all. This memory is not stored in a single place, but in the soil itself, in the DNA of microbes, in the structure of humus, in the winding tunnels of worms. Scientists speak of this as nutrient cycling and soil succession, but to walk among it is to feel something greater, a quiet intelligence that guides every step of renewal. A fallen tree does not rot into nothing. It becomes the platform for new orchids. Its softened bark is peeled away by beetles. Its core becomes hollow, and inside something else is born. Somewhere in the leaf litter, a new seedling begins to emerge. It is no taller than your thumb, no stronger than a blade of grass. But it stretches toward the light because the floor has told it this is the moment. The moisture is right. The nutrients have gathered. The fungal signals have approved. And so it rises slowly, silently, perfectly. This tiny life does not know the names of those that came before, but it grows because of them. Its strength is borrowed from a past it cannot see but can feel. This is what the jungle floor gives. Inheritance not through memory alone, but through nourishment and timing and trust. Even the water in the soil moves with this rhythm. It does not flood the floor at random. It is pulled and guided by layers of root and rock and organic matter. Each drop has been touched by plant and fungus, sifted by sand and clay before reaching the roots that await it. In the dry season, the floor grows quieter but never silent. Microbial activity slows, seeds pause their growth, and decay holds its breath. But it is still alive, still listening, still ready. And when the first rain returns, the transformation is swift. Mushrooms erupt overnight, insects swarm, and the air becomes rich with the scent of reawakening. It is not a surprise. It is a return. The pulse does not begin, it resumes. In this system, even footprints matter. When a tapir passes through, it stirs the leaves, mixes spores into the air, and breaks the crust of soil just enough to let moisture reach deeper. When a jaguar walks its path, it clears space for light to fall onto the ground. When monkeys drop fruit from high above, they are planting the forest one mouthful at a time. And when the rain washes over everything, It carries nutrients from the canopy to the floor in a soft cascade. The entire ecosystem bends toward the soil. It is the base of life and the place where every future is born. To the untrained eye, the jungle floor may seem chaotic, twigs tangled with vines, rotting logs beside crawling ants, scattered leaves and petals, bones hidden in shadows. But beneath that seeming mess is order, patterns, systems of giving and receiving, a balance more ancient than any civilization. It is the calm in the chaos, the steady hand beneath the frantic growth. It says, everything changes but nothing is lost. This is why even the oldest trees begin from here. The mighty ceiba, reaching hundreds of feet into the sky, began in a handful of damp soil no larger than your fist. Its roots once drank from this pulse. Its early days were fed by the same decay and darkness that fuels every living thing. The jungle does not elevate one life over another. The smallest mushroom and the tallest tree are made from the same matter, born from the same breath, and all of it rises from the floor. When we study this place, we often measure what we can see: canopy height, rainfall, tree age. But the floor holds truths that can only be felt. The richness of soil tells of ancient cycles. The presence of one fungus reveals the absence of another. A sudden bloom tells of a shift deep beneath. The floor speaks in the language of time, and only those who listen slowly can begin to understand. To walk barefoot across this earth is to touch centuries. To lie down in the moss is to feel the heartbeat of something far older than your own. And though we may never fully map its mysteries, we are shaped by it. The air we breathe, the food we eat, the water that cycles through our world, all of it begins quietly in places like this. The pulse is not local. It reaches outward, carried in the breath of trees and the flow of rivers. What happens here touches everywhere else. So as you leave this thought, as your mind steps out from the dim hush of the jungle floor, take something with you, not the facts, but the feeling. The knowledge that below the brightness and noise, there is a steady rhythm holding it all. The soft pulse of things becoming other things. The breath of what came before, feeding what comes next. The jungle floor is not just where life falls. It is where life begins. And in its quiet, patient way, it will always remember you were here. In the dimmest corners of the Amazon rainforest, where the canopy closes tightly and the light barely filters through, there exists a gentle radiance, not from the sun but from life itself. This light is not harsh or golden. It is soft, diffused, hidden. It lives in the velvet folds of ferns, in the quiet shimmer of dew on moss, in the soft breath of fog that rises from the earth at dawn. It is not light in the way we know it, not something that casts shadows or reveals detail. It is light remembered, light transformed, light carried inside the green. Ferns, among the oldest plants on Earth, have learned how to survive where light is a whisper. They do not chase the sun. They wait. Their fronds unfold slowly, delicately, reaching out into dimness with the quiet confidence of something ancient. Where other plants seek brightness, ferns thrive in shade, capturing fragments of photons that drift down like forgotten rain. Each cell in their leaves contains chlorophyll arranged in intricate patterns, designed to catch what little light slips through the trees. And somehow, impossibly, that small light is enough. Beneath the canopy, where mist curls between trunks and vines hang like veins, this hidden light becomes the breath of the understory. It powers photosynthesis, yes, but it also powers patience. Plants here grow slowly, methodically. They do not race. They do not bloom in haste. The forest floor is a place of waiting, of sensing, of listening for light that others cannot see. And those who master this art, the mosses, the lichens, the ferns, live not in competition but in communion. They share space. They share time. And they teach us that survival is not always about reaching higher, but about reaching deeper. The fog that drapes the forest each morning plays its own role in this quiet radiance. It carries moisture, yes, but also diffuses light into softness. The sunlight that might burn leaves in an open field instead becomes a glow that wraps around everything evenly. Ferns thrive in this softened world. They absorb not only water from the mist but the scattered light that comes with it. Their leaves, covered in tiny hairs and ridges, are designed to capture the smallest drops, the faintest rays. In this way, the fog is not a veil, It is a gift. This gift is shared by others too. Epiphytes, those plants that live on the branches of trees, catch droplets of fog and hold them in reservoirs formed by their leaves. Some even bloom under these dim conditions, their colors pale but vibrant, like dreams made real. Bioluminescent fungi glow faintly along fallen logs, mimicking the moonlight that never reaches the floor. Fireflies dance slowly through the mist, their glow more noticeable in the dimness, their flickers reflected in droplets clinging to leaves. All of these forms of hidden light create a world that feels suspended, between night and day, between dream and memory. And through it all, the ferns breathe. Their fronds uncurl in spiral patterns called circinate vernation, a process as graceful as it is ancient. These spirals are not merely beautiful, they are efficient, protecting young tissues as they grow. As the fronds extend, they capture more of the ambient light, opening wide like green sails in the fog. The spiral holds within it the memory of light, a design passed down through millennia, unchanged because it has always worked. Ferns do not forget how to find the light, even when it hides. Light in the rainforest is a currency, but not a cruel one. It is not hoarded but passed along. A beam that slips through the canopy might bounce off a leaf, land on a moss patch, then scatter onto the soil. Each surface it touches makes use of it. Nothing is wasted. In these low-light environments, plants have developed pigments beyond green, red anthocyanins to absorb more wavelengths, iridescent surfaces to reflect light deeper into tissues. Some leaves are so thin they glow faintly when lit from behind, their veins traced in soft gold. This is the hidden light, gentle, adapted, persistent. Even animals sense it. Insects with compound eyes can detect ultraviolet glows emitted by certain fungi. Birds, navigating through the gloom, follow shifts in color and light that our eyes can't perceive. Bats use echolocation, yes, but also rely on the faint contrast between leaves and open space. The forest in low light is not dark. It is full of subtle guidance, of clues written in shadow and shimmer. And so this place that seems dim to us is, in fact, luminous in ways we have forgotten how to see. The forest teaches us that light is not only brightness. It can be a glow from within. It can be a reflection in mist. It can be the memory of the sun held in the curl of a leaf. To live in such a place is to accept that light arrives slowly, softly, and often indirectly. And yet, it is enough. It sustains life as surely as the brightest noonday sun. So if you ever stand in a rainforest and feel the dimness around you, look closely. Let your eyes adjust. Notice the way the fog seems to shimmer, how the leaves glow at their edges, how the smallest fern seems to hold light in its folds. You will see that this world is not lacking in illumination. It is rich in a different kind, a slower, deeper, more deliberate light, one that asks for patience, one that offers peace, one that reminds you that even in shadow, life reaches, life grows, and life always finds a way to shine. The deeper you go into the shaded folds of the rainforest, the more you begin to notice the quiet miracles hidden in plain sight. Where light is scarce and the shadows hold steady, plants have learned to speak in a language of reflection and resilience. Among the ferns, mosses, and epiphytes, each species has evolved to capture not just light, but time itself, stretching their growth over weeks and months, taking in what little energy the forest offers and weaving it into green tissue, into survival. The hidden light in this part of the world does not shout, it hums. Some leaves here have surfaces so delicate they scatter light like fine silk. A single ray slipping through the canopy is split and spread, allowing not just one leaf, but many to drink from its presence. This generosity is not accidental, it is design. Evolution has favored those who know how to share. Others turn their undersides into mirrors, bouncing light back upward to the leaves above. A canopy, it turns out, is not just made above. It is co-constructed from below, with every surface helping the rest. The hidden light becomes not just an energy source but a shared resource, reflected, softened, sustained. And ferns, ever the patient companions of shadow, carry this light in the very architecture of their being. Their delicate fronds are not random. They follow mathematical spirals, fractal geometries that maximize surface area while occupying the smallest space. This allows them to spread thinly and widely, catching even the most scattered photons. Under a microscope, the chloroplasts in their cells are arranged like a field of tiny mirrors, oriented to trap light from all directions. These leaves are not passive. They are seekers, sculptors, and savers of light. Fog, too, continues its quiet magic. As the morning mist rises from the warm earth and wraps around every stem, it carries more than moisture. It carries the remains of yesterday's breath, carbon dioxide exhaled by the forest, the soft minerals left by decay, even spores from mushrooms and molds waiting for their next home. This fog refracts light, bending it gently so that it reaches corners untouched by the direct sun. Where the air is thick, the light moves slowly, scattering in gentle arcs. In these spaces, green begins to glow, not with heat but with presence. Mosses cling to rocks and bark like blankets of light-holding memory. They absorb water and shine faintly when wet, their surfaces reflecting the sky in miniature. They need almost no soil, no depth, just softness and dimness in time. In return, they protect. They hold moisture for other plants. They cushion the forest floor. And they keep the humidity high enough for ferns and orchids and tiny epiphytes to thrive. Without moss, the hidden light would have fewer mirrors. Without mirrors, fewer lives would bloom. It's not just the plants that interact with this light. Certain species of frogs have translucent skin that allows just enough light through to confuse predators, blending with the filtered glow of the leaf beneath. Some insects have wings that catch stray beams and glimmer for a moment before vanishing back into shade. Even the scales on certain snakes reflect the faintest light, not to shine, but to disappear, scattering illumination just enough to blur the line between body and background. And beneath it all, the soil receives this quiet light in the form of warmth. Even low light over time heats the damp forest floor. That heat triggers life, microbial activity, fungal blooms, seed germination. Some seeds need only this faint warmth to begin. They have lain in wait through dry spells, storms, silence. But when the light, even in its softest form, touches them with consistency, they split. They open. They begin again. The hidden light is not loud, but it is enough to wake what has been dreaming. There are plants in the Amazon that bloom only in this dimness. They never see full sun, and yet they offer flowers of vivid blues and reds, colors that seem to glow from within. These blooms attract pollinators that also prefer the shadows: moths, beetles, flies. The relationship is ancient, specific, and quiet. The flower opens at dusk. The beetle arrives at night. Pollen is exchanged in the dark. And by dawn, the bloom has closed again, its mission complete. The cycle continues, lit by the memory of light rather than the presence of it. Some ferns in these shadowed areas are known as resurrection plants. In times of dryness, they curl tightly inward, appearing dead. But when touched by fog, by dew, by the faintest return of moisture and light, they slowly unfurl again. They do not complain. They do not panic. They wait. And when the moment is right, they return, not with haste, but with grace. Their survival is a story of trust in slowness, in quietness, in the certainty that even the smallest gifts from the sky are enough. It is easy in our world of brightness and speed to overlook such patience, but the forest holds it sacred. The hidden light is a lesson in gentleness, in endurance, in subtlety. It reminds us that strength does not always come from dominance. Sometimes it is found in adaptation, in the ability to survive with less, to find beauty in shadow, to live without needing to outshine. And in these places, something else stirs, something not often seen but deeply felt, a kind of reverence, a hush that settles over the understory, the realization that light, even when quiet, carries memory. It touches everything. It leaves nothing out. It finds its way into the folds of a fern, the groove of a root, the hollow of a fallen branch. And what it touches, it nourishes, not quickly but deeply. So when you next think of light, think not only of brilliance. Think of this light too, the light that waits, that filters, that lingers. The light that shapes ferns and feeds moss and rests in fog. The hidden light of the rainforest is not absent. It is just soft. And in its softness, it teaches us that life does not always need to blaze to be bright. There is a moment, just before the fog lifts, when the forest holds its breath. The light that has floated all night in tiny droplets, clinging to every frond and vine, begins to fade. Not vanish, but change. The soft glow of dawn replaces the silvery shimmer of mist. The hidden light that wrapped the ferns and mosses in a gauzy embrace begins to rise into the canopy, taking with it the memory of what passed in the dim hours before. But beneath, on the forest floor, in the spaces between roots and within the gentle spirals of fern fronds, something lingers. That quiet light has done its work, and though it retreats, it leaves behind a story only visible to those who wait and watch and breathe with the forest. In that soft threshold between night and day, the ferns begin to stir again. Their leaves, heavy with dew, shimmer like glass holding the last of the fog's touch. The light reflected off their surfaces is no longer sharp or blinding. It is diffused as if painted by memory. Each droplet becomes a lens, bending the morning glow into rainbows barely visible, like forgotten songs suspended in time. The plants, shaped by countless mornings like this, respond not with sudden motion but with quiet readiness. They turn, they open, they rise inch by inch, hour by hour, knowing the sun will come eventually, and until then the hidden light is enough. All around them life responds in tandem. The epiphytes nestled in tree branches hold the fog's moisture in leafy bowls. Small birds, freshly awake, hop between them to drink. Insects emerge from beneath bark and lichen, drawn not by heat but by the gentle warmth that follows the light. Even the ants on the forest floor move differently, slower, more deliberate, their paths damp and cool beneath the lingering mist. The world does not rush. It unfolds, patiently, as if reminded by the light itself to begin gently. Forest does not awaken with noise. It awakens with glow. Even in silence, light moves between surfaces through leaves across the spines of sleeping beetles. There are parts of the rainforest that may go days without a clear sky, yet life there thrives. These are the domains of shade dwellers, plants and animals who have evolved not to chase the sun but to make use of its whispers. They survive on reflected beams, on refracted warmth, on scattered radiance. They are not less alive. They are differently alive. Their world is quieter, their colors richer, their senses tuned to frequencies of subtlety most eyes cannot see. And then, as the sun strengthens and begins to pierce the upper canopy, the mist begins to lift. Slowly, the forest changes color. What had been blue-green turns gold. What had shimmered with dew now shines with heat. But this transition is never abrupt. The hidden light does not vanish. It is absorbed. It becomes part of the chlorophyll inside the leaves, part of the sap rising through stems, part of the sugars formed in the miracle of photosynthesis. The light becomes food. It becomes strength. It becomes life carried quietly in the cells of a fern that may live for decades, centuries even, beneath this green roof of patience. As the morning deepens, some of the plants that thrived in the dim retreat into their comfort again. Flowers close. Leaves turn their undersides outward, shielding their more delicate parts from harsh midday brightness. What looked like awakening was never meant to last all day. The hidden light was always the source they knew best. And so they rest again, waiting for evening, for fog, for shadow. Their rhythms do not match the sun. They follow the pulse of moisture, the breath of mist, the drift of clouds. Even the animals move with this cycle. Certain frogs prefer the dimness, hiding in bromeliads filled with water until the light softens once more. Tiny mammals nest in mossy pockets, waiting for the cool. Bioluminescent fungi, which pulsed with green glow all night, begin to dim as the ambient light grows stronger. Their message has been shared. Their light has served its time. It will return again when the darkness does. And all the while, the forest breathes. It breathes not in gasps or roars, but in long, slow sighs. The light enters its body through the leaves, travels downward through stem and root, and becomes part of the cycle, the giving and receiving of energy, of life, of story. What began as a filtered glimmer at dawn has now become part of everything. In the sugar that feeds a root, in the moisture that lifts through the veins of a frond, in the tiny new shoot just starting to uncurl from forest floor. This hidden light may never appear in photographs or scientific diagrams as vividly as the sun, but it is no less important. It is a kind of whisper that sustains the quiet parts of the world. It nourishes the species that wait in shadow, that bloom in silence, that trust the mist to carry what the sun does not deliver. It is the light of humility, of endurance, of grace. And if you ever return to this place, not just in memory but in presence, try not to look up first. Look around you. Look down. Look into the folds of ferns, into the softness of moss, into the rising curl of fog at your ankles. The hidden light is still there, waiting to be seen, not by the hurried, not by the loud, but by those who pause, who breathe, who listen to the quiet and see that in every drop of mist, in every shimmered edge, in every pale green spiral, there is light. It may not blaze, it may not blind, but it lives, it feeds, it lasts. And in the hush beneath the tallest trees, it tells you gently, not all light is meant to shine. Some is meant to stay close, to grow slow, to last long, to be felt more than seen. That too is light, and in the rainforest it is everywhere. High above the forest floor, above the tangled roots and patient ferns, the rainforest opens into a cathedral of green and light. This is the canopy, where sunlight finally lands in full, where birds carve arcs through shifting branches, and where the sky touches the earth in a whisper. But beneath the color, beneath the movement, there is something else. A silence so vast and steady, it goes unnoticed by all but the most attentive. It is the silence that feeds the sky. It is not absence, it is presence. A living stillness that holds the forest together, that breathes out into the atmosphere, and changes the world far beyond the trees. This silence is not empty. It is made of millions of quiet acts, leaves opening at dawn, stomata exhaling water vapor, roots drawing moisture into trunks that rise like columns toward the sun. Trees do not speak, yet they fill the sky with their breath. Through transpiration, they release immense volumes of water into the air, shaping clouds, feeding weather systems, guiding rainfall across continents. What begins in silence becomes wind, becomes storm, becomes life somewhere far away. And yet the trees never raise their voices. They do not thunder or crash unless broken. Their true power is in the quiet. Each tree contributes to this gentle offering. A single large kapok tree can release hundreds of liters of water into the air every day. Multiply that by billions of trees, and the forest becomes an engine of sky-making. It draws water from the soil and releases it into the sky, not with force but with rhythm. This process forms invisible rivers, moisture streaming across the atmosphere, shaping the climate of countries far from the Amazon's reach. Brazil's rain does not stay in Brazil. It travels, pulled along by winds that were birthed by silence. Above the canopy, where the air is warmer and drier, this transpired moisture begins to condense. Tiny droplets form around particles released by the forest itself, organic bits, spores, pollen. These become the nuclei of clouds. The silence has now become shape, and those clouds built in the sky above the stillness eventually fall back to earth as rain, sometimes in the forest, sometimes in mountains, sometimes in fields oceans away. This cycle is not shouted into motion. It is breathed into being. The creatures that live in the canopy know this silence well. Sloths move without sound, blending into the branches like living shadows. Toucans and parrots, loud in their moments of call, spend much of their time watching, waiting. Even monkeys who chatter in bursts spend long periods in pause, listening to the movement of air through leaves, to the creak of branches, to the distant rumble of clouds being born. In these heights, sound travels differently. There is less echo, more absorption. The silence is thick and living. From the outside, it may seem the forest is always singing, frogs croaking, birds calling, insects humming. And it is, but that is not the only voice. There is also this deeper silence, a layer of stillness beneath the noise where energy is exchanged not in volume but in vapor. This silence is where the sky is fed, where the forest gives back not in fruit or bloom but in breath. Moisture rises, the world above listens. Scientists studying the rainforest's impact on weather have marveled at how far-reaching this quiet system is. Satellite imagery reveals plumes of water vapor stretching far from the Amazon basin, carried into regions that depend on this unseen rain. Farmers in Argentina, shepherds in Peru, forests in the Andes, All are touched by the breath that begins in the Amazon's canopy. And when the forest is cut, when the silence is broken by chainsaws and fire, those clouds begin to vanish. The sky forgets how to rain. The silence was not useless, it was essential. And so the trees stand day after day, participating in this exchange without demand. They offer moisture, they shape clouds, they hold carbon, they absorb sunlight and give back weather. They do not ask for reward. Their silence is not passive, it is active. It is creation without clamor. They do not need to be seen to be heard. Their influence is written in sky patterns, in rivers that do not dry, in seasons that arrive on time. This silence also affects temperature. In areas where forest cover remains intact, the air stays cooler. The process of transpiration releases not just moisture but a cooling effect like sweat on skin. The trees shade the ground, reduce heat islands, and buffer the extremes of climate. Again, not through force but through consistency. The silence does not fight, it balances, and the sky listens. Above it all, the sun moves slowly across the green expanse. Light filters through layers of leaf, turning into patterns on bark, into food in cells, into moisture in the air. The silence guides this exchange. It is the backdrop against which everything else happens. Without it, the sounds would be empty. With it, the forest becomes a living breath, a song too large to hear in one sitting. If you were to stand high in the canopy just after dawn and close your eyes, you would feel it, not as a sound but as a presence. The moisture rising around you, the leaves trembling with the first light, the slow, sure flow of water upward through trunk and branch and out into the air. This is the silence that feeds the sky. It is not still. It is not dull. It is the heartbeat of a forest too wise to shout. So often we associate silence with absence. But in the rainforest, silence is abundance. It is the sum of everything the trees are doing without noise, without audience. It is power held gently. It is wisdom expressed in rhythm. And in this place, where every breath becomes sky, where every drop returns, where the forest rises not only from the earth but into the air, it is the silence that makes all things possible. The forest exhales in waves, not bursts. Each leaf joins a rhythm older than wind, lifting moisture skyward in a soft, invisible current. Birds glide through this breath without knowing, their feathers dampened by what was once river and root. And still, the trees do not stop. Hour by hour they give, filling the sky with water born from silence. No command is spoken. No drumbeat sounds. Only the hush of green offering itself to blue. Above the canopy, the moisture gathers. It floats, weightless, suspended in sunlight. Tiny particles from bark, pollen, and leaf oils rise with it, giving the vapor shape. Slowly, these become clouds, soft, gray, and waiting. They drift not just above the forest, but far beyond it, pulled by winds into dry lands that will drink the rain. All of it began in silence, in a forest that asked for nothing, yet gave everything to the sky. As the sun lowers and golden light begins to soften across the treetops, the forest's breath does not end, it deepens. The silence that fed the sky all day now begins to turn inward again. The trees, their stomata slowing, begin to close their pores like quiet mouths after long speech. The air cools, and with it the canopy exhales its last offering of moisture into the dimming sky. Above, the clouds drift heavy with promise. The rain they carry may fall tonight, or tomorrow, or miles away on another land. But all of it began here, in the hushed, steady breath of the Amazon. Below, shadows stretch. The creatures of the day retreat into their nests and hollows, and the forest shifts into its nocturnal rhythm. Yet even in darkness, the silence remains, not as an emptiness but as a continuation. The trees do not sleep in the way we imagine. Their process is slow, but the quiet flow of energy continues. Roots still draw water. Leaves still sense humidity and warmth. And when the first drops of rain return, the canopy receives it not with surprise but with welcome. The cycle completes itself in silence. Night in the canopy is alive with soft motion. Bats rise into the dark, their wings slicing through air rich with moisture. Moths drift toward the faint luminescence of pale flowers. The fog begins to return, curling gently through branches and vines. And again the forest breathes. This time the breath is heavier, more still, but just as vital. It cools the air, resets the rhythms, and prepares the trees for the next exchange. This is the silence that restores the breath that will rise again with morning. Somewhere far above, the clouds born of this forest begin to fall, droplets that started in the deep vessels of tree trunks, drawn up by sun and released in vapor. They return to earth on distant plains, feed crops, replenish rivers. A farmer in another country stands in that rain and feels relief, not knowing it was born from trees he'll never see. The silence of the Amazon is global. Its breath becomes nourishment for places that have never known its birdsong or its moss-covered roots. And still it gives. Even in its stillness, the forest remembers. Trees that have stood for hundreds of years hold in their rings the record of dry years and wet ones. They carry within them the memory of storms, of years when rain came late, of decades when the balance was just right. These memories are not written in words or kept in books. They are held in silence, in the slow growth of bark, the reach of a root, the lean of a trunk. The forest does not speak of what it knows. It lives it, breathes it, and gives it away without asking. And when humans step into this space, we often speak too loudly. Our boots crush moss that took years to spread. Our voices scatter birds, our presence shifts the rhythm. But if we stop, if we stand still and listen, we begin to hear it. Not a sound, but a feeling. The press of humidity, the slow drip of water, the soft pull of wind high above. These are the forest's language, and in its quiet it asks us not to conquer or consume, but to join, to listen, to breathe with it. The silence that feeds the sky is not separate from us. We are part of the same cycle. The oxygen in our lungs once passed through these leaves. The rain on our windows may have risen from this very ground. The food we eat, the balance of the air we depend on, is tied to this forest and its hush. In protecting its silence, we protect something inside ourselves, something slower, older, more grounded. As the night deepens and the stars blink through the mist, the forest leans into rest, but the silence remains strong and generous. It is the breath that holds the world together, unseen and unmeasured. Not all power needs to be loud. Not all miracles come with sound. Sometimes the most important voice is the one that waits and gives and rises quietly into the sky. So remember, next time you look up at clouds moving across a wide sky, that they may carry the song of leaves, the exhale of trees, the quiet rhythm of a place that gives without needing to be seen. The Amazon does not call for applause. It does not wave for attention. It simply breathes, and in that breath the world is held.